How's it going, everybody? Luke Buckley, Joe Marino here with you. Another episode of the Cautiously Optimistic podcast, episode 20 of season number 7. It's around that time where we normally start a new season. I think, though, waiting till after playoffs typically is our rule of thumb. It just makes the most sense because the current season is ongoing. Maybe at the draft.
I feel like we usually wait until like preseason-ish. So
Okay,
maybe after the off-season stuff settles, but
perhaps. Yeah, so but episode 20, we've been on a good pace this year. Thank you to everybody who has followed along, of course, throughout the whole actual season and the early parts of the off season here. It went quick.
it
These
really
20
did.
episodes. It really did. We went from audio to doing this now on video as well. If you're listening on audio still, thank you very much. If you're watching the video, thank you there as well. You get to see our faces. You get to see. Look, I'm as pale as the sheet of paper right here. It's really it's quite frightening. What's it like for you to be talking to a ghost?
Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Yeah, I updated my background. See, I got the new Buffalo News Bills schedule up. Put the other one.
Oh, very nice.
In storage.
I'm in my living room, so
okay.
I don't think I can.
Yeah.
Update.
Does
my background very nice?
Is the landlord lenient with putting stuff on the walls?
Oh no, I can't do that. So
you're limited. You're limited.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I eventually own my own place,
yes,
we will have our own podcast studio, hopefully.
Oh, that would be great.
You shall see.
That'd be great.
I do want to mention something really quick. Our old stomping grounds closing down.
That's right. Yeah, we'd be remiss.
Medai University. Gotta wonder what happens to the Charging Buffalo studio in there. Is it gonna get all the equipment sold? It took so long for them to get that equipment in the first place. So gotta wonder what happens to that.
Right? You know, we do have an inside track into that school's money problems. I mean, it took a while for us to get that stuff. And I guess maybe we contributed to the economic hardships because, listen, really, Joe, let's be honest. Like, it was 6 of us. It was me, you, our friends Mike, Nino, Joey, who really pushed for new equipment at the radio station at Medai College, as it was then. And we were the only people who used it.
Right.
So let's be honest now. After the fact, we kind of fibbed a little bit to get that equipment in there.
Well, really, they got it when we were gone, too.
Right. That's right.
They allowed us to use it for the time being. Then they kicked us out because some hooligan was stealing equipment from there. Not us, but yeah.
Really, you and I are the only people who even did an actual show there.
Right.
When you think about it, like nobody had an actual sustained podcast, but yeah.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Medai. It's officially dead. Well, as
of August, yeah.
Yeah, but it's terminally ill, and it has a time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And it will die.
That's where the podcast really took off, honestly. Like, it started when we were at seniors at Lancaster High School recording in the AV closet in the library.
Yeah. So we can't completely stomp on its grave, you know.
So we had to lie to the librarians, telling them that we were doing a project for one of our classes, and eventually they were like, "When is this project gonna end?" And we're like, "Oh, by the way, this is a podcast, not a project." But yeah. And then over the summer, we were booted from the original network that we were with.
Oh my
God!
What
it was called, but they deleted all of our episodes, and then we got to Medai, and we one of the main reasons we went there is because they had that state-of-the-art radio station at the time. So
yeah,
or the podcast. So
yeah, so
we owe that room a lot. and it will be sorely missed.
That's true. So again, the professors were wonderful, the people we worked with. So can't gotta leave some flowers at the tombstone. Um,
Absolutely.
wasn't all bad. But anywho, Sabres, right? Yeah, they've been active with their
Very
process,
active.
very active. Um,
Yes.
and I think you were very excited for this episode.
Oh, man. Listen, people, if you've been listening to this podcast for any longer than like a year, like there's some of you who've been here since the beginning, uh, but if you've been listening to us for the last year and a half ish, you know we've been saying Ryan Johnson's going to sign. It's going to happen. And lo and behold, in the wee hours of the morning yesterday, it was announced that Ryan Johnson finally signed. Talk of him going back to Minnesota for a fifth year, hell bent for free agency. No, he's here. He's going to Rochester. I don't know if he's going to play. Uh,
Did they say he's not going to play, or am I imagining things?
I feel it, nothing official yet, but
Okay.
if he can only play if he signed an ATO, because we
Mm,
know the whole conversation with Devin Levi was he can't go to Rochester because he wasn't on the Amerks roster on the trade deadline day, which you have to be on the roster to play playoff games on that day. Remember, look back to last year when they put Casey Fitzgerald, I think Lukanen, and maybe somebody else. I don't remember. It was such a long time ago at this point, but they did the paper transactions to get those guys on the roster so they could play in the AHL playoffs. They didn't do that this year, but Johnson can only play if he was on the AHL roster on deadline day, which he wasn't. So he's reporting to Rochester. So you can assume that he either signed an ATO or he's just going there to hang out and practice with the team for a little bit. I bet he doesn't play. He hasn't played games in over a month at this point because it took him so long to sign. But it's good for him to even get the experience to go down there. I
mhm.
hope that they do like a conference call with him to kind of figure out his thought process here because it's a long time. Like realistically, he could have played a good 14, 15 games in Rochester. And if he plays well, like the odds of him making the team out of camp next year, Buffalo, that is dramatically increased. So interesting that it took him this long. But who knows? Like he's a 21, 22-year-old kid. He probably just wanted to decompress after a long season. Honestly, his classes probably just ended.
That's true.
He
It
probably
was
just
exam season.
graduated.
Mhm.
So I know that people just assume, oh, he didn't sign yet. He's going to go to free agency. But if you've been listening to this podcast, we've
Mhm.
been preaching for a while. Just because you play your senior year doesn't automatically assume that he's an entitled prima donna who just wants to go play for the LA Kings. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I think.
So
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I
Go ahead.
I just have one question because so Savoy can play. So there's I assume he can play because there's different rules between college guys
Right.
and junior guys. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
That's just so strange.
once the junior team is eliminated, you can. It might be on an ATO. I'm not really sure, but
Mhm.
you're able to send those players, even if they're not eligible to play during the regular season. You're
Mhm.
able to send them to the AHL for whenever their team is done. So
Yeah.
Olivier Nadeau has been around. He hasn't played yet. Noah Osland has been around, hasn't played yet. Uh, but Savoy, one of the only two right-handed shot forwards on the team, I just found out yesterday,
Huh.
is able to play. So he played in games 2 and 3, was on the fourth line for game 2, didn't really play a whole lot, but towards the end of the game when it was crunch time, they pulled the goalie. He was out there with Kulik and I want to say Rusek, and they were really leaning on him to try and get back into the game. So I thought that was nice. And then yesterday in game 3, he was on a line with Kulik and Rusek. Overall, I thought he had a fine game. Obviously, he's still adjusting to professional hockey, but
Mhm.
nice to see him out there for sure. And no, Rochester's not losing because they put Savoy in the lineup. He obviously makes them a better team. Uh, Correlation and causation are different things.
I watched game 2, and he certainly didn't look out of place. He was
Oh
skating
yeah,
well. He was
yeah.
keeping pace with everybody. So no, he blended in just fine. So
Motor,
yeah,
motor with
yeah,
Matthew Savoy. He doesn't stop.
hmm
He's small, but you wouldn't watching him play. He doesn't look like he's 5'9", 5'8", whatever he is.
yeah, and
He very aggressive, 100 miles an hour at all times.
mhm,
I just love the player. Whatever happens to him next year, because really the Sabres should write a strongly worded email to the NHL, CHL, whoever's in charge of this agreement and say, come on, he was born a day after the
yeah,
cutoff date. The
give him an
day of the
exception.
cutoff date. They should give him an exception. But
Uh,
let's be honest, the WHL is not a bad league. It's a really
mhm,
good league. Winnipeg is still going to be really good next year. Uh, they could pull what Seattle did with Shane Wright, where he's around the team for the first couple months of the season, put him in a game here and there, gets to 9 games, sit him for a couple weeks, practice with the team, go to Rochester for 2 weeks, drag it out, go play for Canada at the World Juniors, and then go back to Winnipeg for a playoff run. Then basically, whenever they're done, go to Rochester for playoffs. And then the next year, Buffalo, hopefully.
mhm,
So if I were a betting man, I think that's their plan for Savoy, because getting him in pro hockey, even if it's a small sample size, might be the best for his individual development. But
yeah.
we'll see. Maybe he takes off and he does make the team out of camp and sticks around. Uh, that wouldn't surprise me. But as of today, I know a lot of people are on the Yuri Kulik hype train, which deservedly so. He had an amazing year and is having an amazing playoff. But you look at the roster, where are you putting them?
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you trading Casey Middlestat? No. They're not going to. Maybe you will, but Kevin Adams is not going to.
Right.
Olafson still has to be moved, and you still have 12 guys under contract, assuming Gergensons comes back. Uh,
Well, that's the thing too. Olofsson could very well be moved, be that at the draft or just some other time during the off season. Uh, could be a lot of change coming on that front, and of course, re-signing Opozo. Though we had talked about this before, where Opozo might not even necessarily be in the lineup every night, but I mean he'll still have a roster spot. So
Most
that
likely will be in the lineup every night, but
yeah yeah
giving a 35-year-old some rest here and there might not be the worst thing.
right. So there's plenty of variables that the Sabres need to weigh, but man, I'll tell you, just with the Amherst thriving and a couple other guys being signed, Nikita Novikov was signed
Hmm.
almost 10 days ago, and then another signing. I think you'll probably know how to say his first name.
I'm still learning how to say his first name. I believe it's Vasevolod Komarov. I think he was 5th round last year. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know anything about him when they
Yeah,
drafted him. Nothing. Never heard of him, but he's on the Quebec Ramparts. They're in the Memorial Cup right now, and he had a pretty impressive season. Not sure if he's eligible for Rochester next year or not. I'm guessing no, but because he was an import pick out of Russia to the QMJHL, there might be a chance, but similar situation as Savoy, where born like a week or two after the cutoff date to make him eligible for Rochester. But for a prospect like that who's picked in the 5th round, it's no big deal if he goes back to
Mhm.
the QMJHL again for Quebec, who they have a really good team. So run it back.
So still very exciting. Lots of movement. It's cool to see the Sabres active this early in the offseason. It just feels like a nice change maybe from previous years,
Yeah,
right?
they're getting
Where
business done.
that's right. That's right. The grind, so to speak, has not stopped. I hate to use that cliche, but really, they've still been after it, which is
They've gotten
really
their
cool to see.
Russian prospects signed for the most part too.
Yeah, that's the thing
Nuchev,
too.
I think we glossed over it on the lottery edition because obviously lottery podcast that we did with DJ Mitchell,
Right.
because obviously lottery day we were focused on that, but they got him signed, which is awesome. 3rd round pick last year. Exciting prospect. He'll be in Rochester next year, or maybe if he gets picked in the import drafts, he goes to play in the CHL somewhere, but I would bet he's probably in Rochester. Novikov, they got him signed too. They got Kisakov signed last year. And Komarov, Russian, but he was already in North America. So obviously it's a little easier to get those guys signed. So the concern with the Russian prospects when you draft them is it's going to take a long time for them to come over, but they already have 4 of them signed, and now Prokhor Poltapov, you're going to be waiting a couple more years for him to come over, but ideally when he does come over, you're going to have more of a finished product. He's probably going to be able to step right in. Just won the Gagarin Cup in Russia too with former Sabre Mikhail Grigorenko. Uh,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
exciting.
What a mentor. So just for our video listeners, I'd like to bring something up on the screen here. I don't know. How how do you I'm normally very good with names.
Let me put my glasses back on so I can
V
see.
maybe I can
Vasevolod.
Vsevolod.
Vasevolod. Going with Vasevolod.
There we go. I guess I have not read enough World War II books to come across that name like it's like a Russian general or something, I guess. Um but No, very exciting times indeed for the team. And yeah, just a change of pace, I feel like, from what we would normally be talking about around this year. I mean, we've had conversations where it's there's nothing going on. Does this team even do anything
Which
during the off season?
which prospects are we going to lose
Yeah.
because they haven't been signed by June 1st?
Mhm.
We might be able to pull. Why don't you pull it up? I
Mhm.
tweeted. It's from Cap Friendly, probably a couple days ago. Now the list of all of the prospects who will be either re-entering the draft or uh, going to free agency, depending on where they were drafted from. So you might be able to find that from my feed, but it was from Cap Friendly. But one of the prospects who was on that list was Peyton Krebs' brother,
Oh
Drew
wow.
Krebs, who was, I believe, a 6th round pick of the Washington Capitals. He's a defenseman. So I wonder if maybe the Sabres figure out a trade with the Capitals for Krebs' rights, get him signed, because they do, although they did sign these defensemen to contracts, that you could always have more defensemen in your organization. So, like a 7th round pick or something, just to get him in. That'd be interesting to see. Yeah, that is
Trying
the
to
list. So,
full screen here.
yeah.
Work with me
So
here. There you go. Okay.
some guys that I used to like quite a bit. The number one guy on that list, Anaheim Ducks prospect Sean Shigerel, liked him quite a bit. He was a 5th round pick. I think I had him graded out as a 2nd or a 3rd round pick when he was drafted originally. A little undersized, but with Pat Verbeek at the helm in Anaheim, not very surprising that he likes kind of the grinded out kind of guy. Shigerel's more of a skilled guy. Jack Beck is a guy that I liked. Calgary prospect. Cole Huckins, too, 3rd round pick.
Oh
Lots of
wow.
guys in Calgary.
Carolina prospect Bobby
Bobby
Orr
Orr.
is going to be available.
Yeah. So some names.
Yeah, not many,
Yeah, not many big
not
names,
many
but
marquee names.
Ben Roger, he was a second round pick of Ottawa. That could be someone of
And
note.
yeah, that is true. Travis.
Surprised that the Sharks didn't sign Ben Goudreau.
Yeah.
I believe he played for Canada at the World Juniors at one point,
And
but there's a few names that
again,
I would consider. But yeah,
again, if folks that are listening want to check this out, you can go to the YouTube. We'll have this posted there, and you'll be able to check out what we were just looking at. So, how about that?
there's lots of brothers of current Buffalo Sabres players that are owned by other teams. So I wonder if they try and go for the brotherly love route, getting Drew Krebs, Tice Thompson, Luke Tuck,
Just for
Luke
further,
Middlestat, who is in the draft this year, was really good for Minnesota Gophers. Dylan Cousins' brother is about 16 years old, going to be playing for the Lethbridge Hurricanes next year. So maybe he gets drafted by the Sabres in a couple years. But there's some guys, if they want to go that route. I feel like a lot of teams lately have been drafting brothers of core players of their team. Colorado drafted Cale Makar's brother. I believe his name's Taylor Makar. When Kirby Doc was on the Blackhawks, they drafted Cale. What the heck's his name? Colton Doc.
yeah.
His
Oh
brother.
yeah, yep.
Uh, so there's some precedent. I wouldn't. Sabres are a kumbaya organization. I wouldn't be surprised if they try and do
It
something
just
like
gives you
that.
more incentive to sign your young guys too.
Right.
If we're gonna look at it that way.
I wouldn't be surprised if Luke Tuck, Montreal Canadiens second round pick, decides to play it sounds like he's playing his senior year at Boston University. He's a year away from free agency. I I think there's no like rumors that he's going to sign with the Sabres, but it just feels like Luke Tuck is going to
Maybe
sign with the Sabres.
Big Brother puts in a good word, right?
I wouldn't be surprised. It makes sense. And
Says,
he's a
yeah.
good player too. Like if you watch the NCAA tournament, he was a factor for Boston University. So
Mm-hmm.
he's a good player. Former Buffalo Junior Sabre too. So
Oh
like
well, it makes
his
even more
brother
sense.
has ties to the area. I'm sure
Yeah.
he was also a Sabres fan growing up. But
Oh, I'm sure. There's probably video or a picture of him wearing a butter knife jersey as well,
is he alive for
playing
Butter
street
Knives
hockey.
era?
Oh, well,
Probably more of a slug
I don't
guy.
know. Yeah,
But yeah,
slug era guy.
fun. Let's go. Let's circle back to Ryan Johnson.
Yes.
Uh, I feel like most people probably just assumed he was heading to free agency, so it's like a pleasant surprise for most. But this is huge. I
Mm-hmm.
think a common thought in Saberland has been there's nothing on defense, but you look at the NHL roster, you have three building blocks, put them in pen, they're on your team for the next 7+ years. And Dahlin, Power, and Samuelson. That's half your decor right
Yep.
there. You just signed three of your D prospects, three out of your four like NHL potential D prospects in Komarov, Novikov, and Johnson. And you have lots of picks this year. You have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. So can only assume they use at least 1 or 2 on a defenseman. So that's going to be interesting to see. But can you remember back 4 years ago when the Sabres drafted Ryan Johnson? And
Yes.
5 years ago when they drafted Matthias Samuelson?
Yes. I
Young,
know where it was.
a young Joe was furious that they drafted defensemen with those 2 picks because there were no forwards in the organization.
Right.
Look at how the tides change.
Yeah,
Now,
I think
years later, we're talking about how there's no defenseman in the organization.
yeah.
And if they didn't make those 2 picks and they went forwards, we'd be saying, oh man, what are we doing? This is a case for draft the best player available. Just want to say it, but
Yeah, and I think we had touched on that because I know there were some highly thought of forwards available, I
Yeah,
remember we talked about like Arthur Kaliev
Kaliev.
was available when that pick was made, and but no, it's worked out in the end. And you're right, the benefits of um of picking best available, because
Yeah,
down the line you're just you're unknowingly perhaps addressing needs that are going to arise further down the road.
it's not the NFL where you draft a
Right,
guy and they're on the team right away. You're
right.
drafting guys 4 years down the road in most cases, unless you're picking in the top 5,
Yeah,
something like that. But
I'm
draft day is
trying
coming up.
to.
I'm excited.
Right.
I will be out of town
You.
for the draft.
Yeah, this was a development to me. You said this to
Yeah,
me right before we went on here.
yeah. Impromptu trip to Minnesota to see some family.
Oh,
I
nice.
will
Well,
be out of town. I haven't gone since Rasmus Dahlin was drafted 5 years ago. I believe I
wow.
left the next day.
I have
Saw Dahlin
family.
get drafted and left. So
I
I
have
will be
family in
missing
town from Minnesota right now.
Hmm,
How about that?
Minnesota. Great,
You'll
great
at least
place.
be in the land of the state of hockey,
Right.
right? So you'll still have that connection, though. I'm sure the draft will be on everywhere you go. There, they'll be talking about it. I don't
Hmm.
know if you're like this, but if you have family in from out of town, or if you're on vacation somewhere, do you take great interest in talking to them about their local teams? Like, will
Oh
you
yeah.
talk to them about the Wild, or about, about the Vikings? I don't. You're a hockey guy, but
Yeah.
like, I love talking. When I went to Virginia Beach last year, I loved talking to just people that maybe worked at a store or something. Like, who do you guys root for down here? Because it's Virginia. You're between all this stuff, so it's I just love.
They Hurricanes fans.
I saw Capitals flags. I saw Rangers flags. Penguins, Hurricanes. I'm sure there's probably some sprinkled about the further south you went. But yeah, I love doing that. I love getting people's
Wasn't there
perspective.
talk of an expansion team going to Virginia Beach
Hampton
at one
Roads,
point?
the
Yeah.
Hampton Roads Rhinos. They had a logo and everything. Yep.
I love like the teams that almost happen, names that almost happen.
Yeah.
I was watching an aesthetics video and the Panthers were almost called the Florida Blockbusters
Yes. And did you see the logo
because
for them
yeah,
too?
because it
I'm gonna
wasn't
bring that
like
up.
someone put it on the screen for the people watching on YouTube, but
Mm.
if you don't know, the Panthers owner originally was also the owner of Blockbuster, something along those
Wasn't it Wayne
lines.
Huizinga or something? That was his
Something
name.
like that, but
Yeah.
the Panthers owner wanted them to be called the Florida Blockbusters to have some kind of uniformity
Yeah.
uh, between his team and his business. So very interesting how the tides change. Thinking that if the Florida Blockbusters were heading to the Stanley Cup final right now.
I feel like the NHL nowadays would just like never allow that kind of that kind of integration, right?
Oh yeah.
All right, I'm gonna pull it up here in a minute, but yeah, if you just Google Florida Blockbusters, you can find it. It's actually a really sick logo. It kind of reminds
Hard
me
hat
of,
on.
yeah, the hard hat, the sledgehammer. It has the Blockbuster colors.
So
Uh,
90s.
it kind of reminds me of the Oilers shoulder patch logo with the guy pulling
Yeah.
the crank or whatever he's doing. He's doing some man work. Uh, then also there's a picture of the jersey that I can uh bring up here. It's really nice. It kind of looks like the Chiefs from Slapshot,
Yeah.
and we'll see that in a minute. But yeah, straight from
Huh.
the Panthers archives. There's a video you can check out too.
It's an interesting jersey. Very different compared to
Yeah,
what they ended up with. Even like the color scheme. Wow.
the Florida Blockbusters. I love it. How about the Avalanche were close to being the Rocky Mountain Extreme,
Mm-hmm.
which sounds like a DQ Blizzard flavor. That would have been the most 90s team name to come out of that expansion era. I mean, it not even just DQ Blizzard. That sounds like a rollerball team or an indoor soccer team.
Roller derby.
Roller derby. Yeah, yeah. Rollerball was a movie that did horrible in the box office. But,
It wasn't a blockbuster.
it was not a blockbuster. No, no, if we can relay that, yeah. But yeah, the Newport News Rhinos were another one that we tried hitting on.
Uh, Stanley Cup final. Now off of the
Yeah.
Florida blockbuster. Florida's off to the final,
Yes.
and they're going to face either Dallas or Vegas. Vegas choking a little bit here, and we'll see what happens. But
I think they'll pull through.
yeah, I think so too. I obviously don't want to see Jack Eichel win the Conn Smythe Trophy, but at the same time, I don't really care. I was thinking about the Jack Eichel trade yesterday.
Yeah.
Where are the Sabres right now if they don't trade Jack Eichel to Vegas? Like, if
Uh,
they traded him to who were the other teams in the conversation? Like, if they
Calgary,
traded him
because
to
wasn't Kachuk on the table?
allegedly,
Or is that innuendo? Yeah.
allegedly, Kachuk was on the table, but like if they traded him to a team for strictly futures,
Yeah.
like Minnesota, if they traded Jack Eichel in Minnesota and they got like Marco Rossi, a couple first round picks, and something else,
Yeah.
where are the Sabres right now? I feel like because they got Alex Tuck,
Hmm.
their window is open. I
Yeah.
feel like their playoff window would not be anywhere near open if they didn't trade him to Vegas.
Hmm.
So trade did it's a win-win for sure.
Right. It's one of those that down the line, I think maybe further down the line it'll turn into a win-win. Vegas will have the edge, obviously, if they win the cup this year.
Yeah.
But
If Vegas wins the cup, like they're happy.
yeah, yeah.
100%. Even if they don't win the cup, they're happy. They got a great center
Mhm.
to play with them, and the Sabres got a guy who was dying to be a Buffalo Sabre. You got a good prospect in Noah Ostlund. You got a pick that you turned into Jordan Greenway, and you got a good character, skilled, developing forward in Peyton Krebs. So it's a win-win.
See,
I easily.
I'm bitter. I think you might know that if we have listeners who have seen me tweeting. Uh it's like there has to be a part of every Sabres fan that hates seeing what's happening. Right? Like unless you're like super chill and super level-headed, which even I think I am, and I'm still bitter over how things are turning out just because it's like it's another thing that Buffalo fans have to live with and deal with, that we were scorned again, and now look, the faces of that whole era that none of us want to go back to are thriving on another team, and we have to think
Could
about
be facing off in the final.
yeah, they could be
Eichel
facing off in the
Reinhardt in the
final.
final.
Yes, and it's like, well, that's 6 years down the tube, of course, that none of us wanna remember because it was the darkest time in Sabres history, and it's just obviously, we all wish it could have worked out with Eichel, and it hurts to see him thriving with, another team, to be honest. And, like, I was the one we went to that Vegas game, we did the
Yeah.
CarCast, right? And I
Hmm.
was kinda really pounding the drum of, "Why do we even care anymore?" But now that it's like they're there, it actually happened. You think that Vegas would maintain their reputation as being a choker, sort of.
Hmm.
But no, now they're one win away from again appearing in the cup with Jack Eichel in his
Hey,
first.
maybe they will choke still. They have
It's
lost two in a row.
possible, and that would be very funny.
Hmm.
But it's like it's like seeing a person you like end up with somebody else. It's like you're cool with them. You're cool with them because they're not with anybody right now. And that's like, you're cool with Jack because, well, Vegas is struggling or, oh, they're going to choke anyway. But, oh no, suddenly they post on Instagram that they're very happy and you're like, you're taken aback. right?
How
Am
many
I
teams are kicking themselves for worrying that his neck surgery was gonna backfire? Clearly, it hasn't. He's been
It clearly worked.
arguably
It
arguably the best Golden Knight in the playoffs. He probably wins the Conn Smythe if they win the cup.
Yeah, I think he and Kachuk are the leading
Oh
Conn
yeah,
Smythe getters. Did I get too real there for a moment? I think that's pretty relatable. I tried to
ah,
be as relatable as possible. I mean,
seems relatable. Yeah,
but no, you get what I mean? It's like
yeah, I got you.
now that it's actually happening, it kind of sucks.
Do you think the Rangers wish that they would have made a handful of their untouchables touchable
I bet.
to get him?
The Rangers are a team I was thinking about just the other day of we always talk about how the Sabres will, they're going to need teams to drop off. There's always going to be movement in the standings for the Sabres to get into the playoffs. And like the Rangers might be one of those teams that sooner than later might fall off. I
They
mean,
are an older team.
they
They
are an
have,
older team.
yeah,
They're Kane and Tarasenko, I don't think
gone
will be
probably.
back. And
Yeah.
Kane anyway isn't a guy that'll get you over the hump nowadays. He's not the Patrick Kane of old. Um, Tarasenko, I mean, he's
Tarasenko
just
to
another
me seems
guy.
like a guy who's gonna go to the Panthers. I can
Yeah,
I can just imagine him in Florida, kind
or
of
the
like a
Hurricanes.
sweetheart deal. Yeah, something like that. I can
Because
yeah.
Pacioretty keeps getting hurt, so they can't they can't um they got to find a way to replace that production in a way.
Maybe they
You
both
know,
go to the Hurricanes.
yeah. Oh, maybe. Could you after how the conference final ended, um, you know, I think the Hurricanes are going to do whatever they can in a way. You can keep going, by the way. I said taking us all
Okay.
off skate for a minute.
I was worried that we glitched out for a second, but yeah. Are you who? Okay, let's say it's Dallas or Vegas versus Florida. Who are you rooting for? Do you have a team that you hope wins? I imagine Florida's a good story. I I think I'm rooting for Florida. I would like to see Sam Reinhart win the cup.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's why
I always got a soft spot for Sam Reinhart.
this is why I've hated this in these like entire playoffs because it's just been so hard to watch. Honestly, the team I'm rooting for right now is probably Dallas. 99 happened. Okay, yeah, there's a lot of people who are going to be hurt by 1999, but I could care less. I
It was
wasn't alive.
24 years ago.
It's just a thing that you and
Come
I can
on, get
complain
over
about
it.
and point to. It's a part of Sabres lore. It's like I wasn't alive for it. I have no
I was a
attachment.
baby. I was a baby
Yeah,
when no
I
goal happened.
I
Get
was
over it.
born
I don't know.
3 months later. I don't care. It's like give it to them, right? I don't want to see for the second time in 4 or 5 years for a guy who was a member of that core Sabres team that sucked and couldn't get over the hump when they were here, and suddenly they're a contributing part to a Stanley Cup winner. I don't want to see it.
Yeah, I feel that.
And that's just me. I'm a bitter. I can be a very bitter person.
Jeez, if the Sabres, obviously the Buffalo wouldn't have gone to the Cup final if they just would have won one more game and essentially knocked the Panthers out of the playoffs. But wow,
Yeah, and see, like that's another thing too. Is like Florida, I think, is kind of showing that they underperformed in the regular
oh
season.
yeah. Well,
Because
did they win the President's Trophy last year?
yes, yes.
It's amazing. Like
Mhm.
you were the best team in the East last year, and did they made it to the second round, right? Or did they face Tampa in the first? I don't remember,
No, I think
but
they bumped into Tampa. It was the second, yeah, in the
okay,
second round because
yeah.
they actually
So
won. Who'd they
you,
beat? I'm gonna look that up.
was it Toronto? No,
No,
Toronto.
Tampa. Tampa beat them.
Okay,
Tampa beat Toronto. Uh, in that first round.
yeah, I don't remember, but it's an amazing story how
The
you win the
Capitals.
President's Trophy. Oh yeah, Capitals. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
you win the President's Trophy,
Mhm.
and you're out early, you underperform. Then you're the worst team to make the playoffs, and you're in the final.
Yeah.
Just randomness. You gotta love it.
Mhm. Yeah. That's the thing. That's what just you got to get in and anything can happen. I said that multiple times during this
Yeah.
season. You get in, you get into the field of 16 and anything can happen. And
Hmm.
now the Panthers are on the verge of almost going through 2 1 seeds, right? Is Vegas is the 1 seed in the in the West, right?
If they're not number one, I think they might be number two.
Because the Kraken were definitely better than the Jets,
I think so. Let me
and the
take a
first
look at
round
the
matchup was Vegas.
standings.
I'm pretty confident in that answer. But so yeah, you get in with the level of parity in this league.
Vegas was
Literally,
the number one seed, by the
okay,
way.
yeah. See, so anything can happen. I think they'd be the well, yeah, they definitely be the first team in history to go through 2 1 seeds to win the Stanley Cup
Yeah.
because the Kings didn't do that, and the Kings are the only 8 seed to win the cup, right?
Probably.
Because the Predators went to the cup as an 8 seed, but
Hmm.
didn't win. Yeah, so I think that's a cool storyline I'm looking at is going through 2 number 1 seeds to win the Stanley
As
Cup.
we're recording, JJ Paterka scored for Germany in the gold medal game against Canada.
So 1-0
It's
or
1-1. Sammy Blais scored, but
oh, wow.
it's 1-1.
How
If
about
you
that?
missed it, Latvia beating Team USA for the bronze medal. So that's a good story. Uh, Sabres, their players are playing really well at the World Championships. Paterka's been
Mhm.
amazing for Germany. Quinn and Krebs really both playing well for Canada. For some reason, uh, Devin Levi never can play for Team Canada. He makes the teams, but never plays.
We got a
Uh,
question about that.
World Juniors
I
aside,
don't know if you saw
we can table that for now. We can, yeah, we'll table the
because
Levi
I was
discussion until questions. But
I
yeah,
think it's a really good one.
uh, and Tuck, the Tuck, Alex Tuck was one of the better players for Team USA as well. Although USA never really likes to bring their best guys to
No, Team USA
the
was
worlds.
it looked like a Spangler Cup team
Yeah,
this year. Alex Tuck
Alex,
was probably the
Alex
best
Tuck and a
player.
bunch of guys.
Yeah, yeah, it was seriously, it was Tuck in the 2018 Olympic team almost.
Yeah, but good representation. And if man, like you remember Dylan Cousins, how he played at the Worlds last year. If like Quinn, Krebs, Paterka all have that
Quinn's
same
been playing out of
breakout,
his mind.
yeah, I
Couple
think
goals.
we're looking at a real breakout year for a couple of those guys probably. And if
Yeah.
that kid's line will be a man line next year if they
The
do that.
men line. I love it. The
Wonderful.
working man line. Yes. Yes. Oh, that's
Exciting.
oh, see, we're gonna have to come up with a new name for that because soon they're
There's
not
gonna
gonna
be
be
another
kids.
kids line eventually.
Yeah.
Uh Kulik, Savoy, and Krebs, whoever they draft this year, maybe it's
Oh man.
gonna be. I want to
Calling him
talk
Krebs
about
kid
this
still.
too. This can be something before we get into questions.
Mhm.
What are they gonna do at forward going forward? You've got so many guys. And I feel like whenever there's a discussion on Twitter about what the lineup could look like eventually, like you can realistically make a full lineup of guys who have been drafted in the first
Mhm.
round by the Sabres and make four awesome scoring lines, but there's going to be pushback
Yeah.
because where's the grit? Where you can't, you need some grinders in there. What are they going to do? But at the same time, when you suggest trading like Roseanne or
Right.
any of their Osland, any of these guys, you get pushback on that too. Like, what do you want? What are they going to do?
What it all points to is somewhere down the line, maybe after a playoff appearance, is a big time trade and bringing in a big name player. I mean, things will
But
change.
then Luke, you can't pay him more than
Yeah.
Tage Thompson. You run into
Yeah.
a roadblock at any idea.
Well, listen, this is a good problem to have, though. I'm not about to
Yeah,
turn this into a bad
I don't
thing,
know.
right?
I just think it's funny
Opportunities will
how
present themselves, and maybe you trade for a guy that's already on a contract, though.
Connor Hellebuck.
Perhaps.
I'm surprised it took us this long to get into Hellebuck. What do you think?
Yeah.
Should they do it?
I'd love it. I'd love it. And I said to you, think of UC Saros and his development. He played under Pecorine for 3 or 4 years, and now he's one of
Yeah,
the best goalies in the league. He might be up for the Vezina, I think.
probably.
So, I'd love it if you put Hellebuck with Levi. Let Levi shine in the 30 or 25 starts that he gets.
Listen, you need two good goalies in the
Mhm.
NHL these days. You can't just roll with Devin Levi and Ukko Pekka. You just can't. Or
Vegas
Comrie.
is
Yeah.
looking so smart right now for going out and getting
Aiden
quick at
Hill.
the deadline. Aiden Hill,
For
bringing
a
him in.
fifth round pick?
Yeah, it's just they have
Imagine if Buffalo did that instead of signing Eric Comrie.
it's a never-ending stream of goalies that they have. Robin
Robin
Leonard,
Leonard
he
is
wasn't available this
on
year.
Robida Island.
Yeah, he wasn't available this year. Logan Thompson takes over, plays great. He
What
gets
happened to
hurt.
him? Is he still hurt, or are they
He's
just
hurt.
not playing him? Okay.
He's still hurt. And I guess, it's the playoffs. There's no point in changing anything now.
He's signed to a sweetheart of a contract too. I
And
think
he's really good.
he's like under $1 million for another couple of years. He had a
Yeah, but
great year.
point being, the Vegas has like 5 goalies who could win them games.
Mhm.
Jonathan Quick was backing up the other night. It's like, does this ever end? Like when does Yuri Patera come up? Like
He
how
looked
far?
okay for them in the Yuri Patera is when the Sabres traded a pick to Vegas to not
Mhm.
pick Lena Salmark, Patera was the guy that they selected with that pick.
Oh wow.
Mhm. The more that you know.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh, what do you think about Aiden Hill as an option for the Sabres? Because I'd be shocked if they like traded a first round pick plus for Connor Hellebuck.
Right.
I don't know. It just
That's
goes
the
against
one
everything
obstacle.
that Kevin Adams says.
Yeah.
I'll believe it when I see it when it comes to moving
Yeah. Bringing
moving
in
Ukko
and
Pekka.
yeah.
I don't know. I just think that they really like him. We'll see, but
Yeah, it does seem counter to what the plan is.
yeah.
But
So I feel like I feel like they're going to have an off season similar to last year
mhm,
on July 1st, where they bring in another goalie, a better version of Eric Comrie, and
mhm.
they bring in a better version of Ilya Lyubushkin, and you call it an off season.
Yeah, and Aiden Hill could be that guy. That's a good one to consider. Because he had a good regular season too. It's not like he's just and he was good last year also. I mean, I think he was good with the Coyotes too. So he's not just kind of a flash in the pan guy either.
Yeah.
So
The
and
Sharks traded a second round pick for Aiden Hill 2 years ago, and then a year later they trade him for a fourth. So
mhm, yeah,
egg on face for them for sure.
yeah.
Why don't we get into questions now?
Yes, we got some good ones, some funny ones also mixed in. Yeah, I got some that well, you were tagged in the tweet that was
Okay.
replied to. So, um, do you want to start off with the serious one?
Yeah, go for the serious one.
Wait, do you have the account open? I don't. I probably
Yes.
should have had that
Let me open it up.
going here. Well, while you do that, thank you to everybody who has listened this far in. We certainly appreciate it. Sorry I had to turn my camera off a few minutes ago if you're watching and mute my mic. Um, that just creates more problems for me editing now for audio, so that aggravates me.
Okay. Well, we had a few questions.
Yes.
First one from Greg over at Cover One. Thank you for the question.
Yes.
And then Greg, a handful of questions here from Greg. How would you explain offsides to a 5-year-old? Is a
Hmm.
2-line pass real? Are we sure Mama doesn't hide the cookies anywhere else? And why doesn't anyone ever shoot at one of the first 4 holes? what is actually dangling? So some questions that nobody asks from
I
Greg.
love it.
Luke,
Greg Thompson.
I feel like you should
Hey,
answer
that's
these.
that's Greg Thompson. He's he's if I may use a term that we use frequently here, he's a guy. He's prevalent in the Bills space. Does excellent work with cover one.
Absolutely.
So Greg, thank you very much. How do you explain offsides to a 5-year-old? Oh man, I'd have to use an analogy with like candy or something. Um, how about
Don't pass the puck to somebody. Don't cross the blue line if your teammate is past the blue line.
but what if they don't know what the blue line is?
I mean, it's
No.
self-explanatory. It's a blue line.
What I would if we're answering this literally, I think I would just I'd make it a drawing session. I'd get the Crayolas out. I'd get the 64 pack of Crayolas out. Um, sketch up a little rink, okay? And maybe explain it as like you want to stay together type of deal. You don't want if you're hanging out with friends, right? Say you're trick or treating, you don't want your buddy going out ahead of you and going to the house, the next house before you get there, right? You all want to get there at the same time. I don't know. It's hard to think of an example off top of my head. Is two-line pass real? Technically, not anymore.
It
But what a
was at one
stupid
point.
rule.
Was
Y like
that was pre-lockout, right?
yes, yeah, that's one of
Okay.
the changes.
That predates my fandom, so I
They
don't even know.
were the people in charge were just intent on making the game as boring as possible, I feel like, especially with the grabbing and what has become the delay of game penalty
I
being
feel like
actually allowed.
when when I was first getting into hockey, I had NHL 2K on
Yes.
the Sega Dreamcast when I
Yeah.
was very young, and 2K was 2000. It was just
Yeah.
NHL 2K. I believe Brendan Shanahan was on the cover, and I believe two line pass was a thing
Yes,
on
because
there.
I remember playing NHL Blades of Steel 99 or
Oh,
98.
Blades of Steel.
The one with
Blades of
Yager
Steel
on
was
the cover.
so good.
Yeah,
Oh, there was another Blades of Steel. There was one on the
oh.
original Nintendo,
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
8-bit.
Yes,
Fantastic game.
but then
Love it.
they put the NHL license on it and put the teams in the game.
Oh,
Yager was
man.
on the cover. It was either 98 or 99,
I gotta
but
find that because in the original one, there was just, like, a handful of teams,
yeah, it was like
like
countries, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it was like
it was
oh,
like Minnesota, Toronto,
oh,
Los
oh,
Angeles. There's, like, a handful of teams, but
oh, wow.
very
Well,
cool game. I would
um
recommend.
yeah, I remember playing that game when I was, like, 6 or 7 and just being like, "Two-line pass, what the hell is that?" And my dad or someone told me, like, what it was. I was like, "I can't believe that existed." Are we sure mama doesn't hide the cookies anywhere else? I don't know.
Gotta ask
We
Rick Jeanneret.
gotta ask Rich Jeanneret. Um, clearly, when he was growing up, there was a shelf somewhere in the house where the cookies were hidden. I can't, um, it's not my place to, um critique his upbringing.
If
So,
we ever
I don't know.
get the pleasure of having Rick Jeanneret on our podcast, we will be
Oh,
sure to
goodness,
ask him.
goodness. Why doesn't anyone ever shoot at one of the first 4 holes? Well, of the 5 hole is the only hole that I know for sure. I don't know.
There are numbers for the other holes, just no one
Yeah, I
ever
guess so.
references it.
5 hole, probably I imagine it's probably 1 through 5, and 5 between the legs is probably the least likely to score on, I imagine it's probably thought of. So that's probably why it's the 5 hole if we're going top to bottom. The 1 hole and 2 hole are probably like the top corners, and
Right.
maybe the 3 and 4 holes are
The bottom
underneath the
corners.
arms.
It's a
Yeah.
good guess.
Yeah, so that's what I'd imagine. I have thought about that. What is dangling? Well, you make a guy look like they're on a keychain. That's how I think of it, right? You skate
Yes.
around, you circle a bit, and naturally 2 or 3 guys will follow you, and then they jingle all around. I guess if you looked at I don't know if you put it like a top down view and the guys with like dots or something, it might look like they're on the guy's trail, like they're attached to the player that has the puck. Think of it like that. Think of it like a keychain, right?
I remember back in high school when you were talking about some of your
Some of my
calls of the
play-by-play
future,
calls.
your play-by-play
Oh,
calls. You
see, I
said
don't
you
want
put them
someone
on
to
the
steal it.
keychain. I
I don't want
remember
someone to steal it. Yeah, but you dang.
trademarked it.
I know. So thank you very
Trademarked it.
much, Greg. I wasn't expecting him to give a question. I don't even know.
Yes. Greg, if you've been a listener or a new listener, we appreciate it. Thank you for the
Yeah,
question.
seriously, that's wonderful. Greg Thompson, cameo question on the show. We appreciate it indeed.
All right. A couple more. Brandon Duffy asking how awesome it would be to get Matvey Michkov
Hmm,
and the AHL plays by prison rules, apparently. Yes.
I saw that yesterday.
It was horrible. Justin
Yeah.
Kia, former Sabre prospect, was the ref in
Oh.
game 3. In game 2, Jordan Samuels Thomas, another former Sabre prospect, was the
Mhm.
ref. So yeah, Kia and the crew, rough game for the Stripes yesterday. But yeah, Mitchkov would be uh, a good hockey prospect guy on Twitter. Gabe Foley actually
Mhm.
he put out his mock draft when we were starting this and had Mitchkov going to the Sabres at 13. I feel like he doesn't get past Washington at 8, but I feel like if he gets to 13, Kevin Adams will be prancing up to that stage and will gladly select him.
It's crazy how things change in like just a year and a half. I mean,
Yeah, he was number 2.
he and Bedard were 1 and 2,
Hmm.
and now suddenly he's dropped like
He
this.
hasn't played in on the world stage, World Juniors,
It,
anything like that because of the Ukraine
oh, so that's
situation.
why then.
Yeah, because he would, I believe, when he was a 16-year-old, he put up monster numbers at the U18s, and that's where he really put his name on the map. And
Yeah.
I feel like if he wasn't Russian, he'd be number 2.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. But there's a contract situation, and that's going to do it. He signed for another few years. But if there's any team that can wait a few more years, it's the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah. Well, oh man.
All right.
I have a joke. I'll tell you off the air.
Paul Blarth Malkop. Also, thank you,
Yes.
Brandon, for the question. Which of the recent new draft pick signees of the Sabres make the biggest impact in year one with the team next year? My money is on Novikov, but I see Komarov sneakily being a guy quick in Rochester. Well, I think Ryan Johnson would be my guy, but I
Mhm.
do think Nikita Novikov is going to be something for Rochester. He's been playing a pretty big role in the KHL ever since being drafted, really. So
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a like a nice puzzle piece in Rochester. Fits right in.
I saw this question come in and I immediately thought Novikov. If he makes a jump to the AHL next year, I mean, he looks like he can already play professional. I mean, you said he's in
Right.
the KHL, so he can clearly hold his own against older players. So yes, I think Novikov definitely. Um, well, the biggest impact. Paul Blarth, one of my favorite followers. Plop Warner
All right.
at Plop Warner.
I believe that's all we've got for this week.
Is that all?
Yes, I believe so.
All right.
But yes, good show today. We'll try and get some more draft content as the draft rolls around over the next month. We're about a month away from the draft, so
Oh, one more.
one
Sorry,
more.
if I
Okay,
will. From
quick.
William. This is about Devin Levi. We talked about this
Okay,
earlier. Why he's not playing. William just wants to know, what do you think the deal is with Levi not getting playing time with Team Canada? I think it's just experience. Sam Montembeau has more NHL, more playing experience probably, but it is weird because Levi did make his name in the World Championships.
World Juniors.
Well, yeah, so
Yeah, for Canada.
is a little strange. But I think it's just NHL experience. I think
Yeah.
that's all it is.
Also, the Blues GM was the GM of Team Canada, and obviously he's going to want his
Yeah,
his
yeah.
prospect Joel Hofer to
A
play games.
little
So makes sense.
some politics there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for that.
William. Thank you.
Uh, yeah, I believe that's going to be it for this episode. Follow us on Twitter, Joe Marino TCB, LVKETCB, and Luke. We have a new Twitter handle for the podcast
Yeah,
account.
it's been at the bottom of the screen for our viewers here, but if you're listening to the pod, it is at CO Buff Pod. That's COBUF Pod. COBUF is capitalized, but I don't think it matters if you're typing
Does
it
not
into
matter.
Twitter. Yeah, it
Yes.
doesn't matter. So, yeah, new Twitter handle. Um,
Same
yeah,
account,
give it a follow.
just a new
Same account.
handle.
Same account. Yep. So,
Yeah.
same
I've
stuff.
become a graphic design wizard, so
Yeah.
hopefully we
Yes.
will.
There'll be more stuff.
Yeah.
More stuff will be popping up. Of course, on here we'll do our little segments. Those haven't gone away. In fact, they're only going to get better. And we are video enabled, as the saying goes in the industry. Such as this, and such as this. So you'll be seeing more
Guy
of
of the
those.
week.
Yeah. And hey, this is like we're still in the beta stages practically of this. It's only going to get better. So,
Absolutely.
keep listening, keep watching, and thank you. Mwah.
All right. Thanks for listening or watching, and we'll see you in the next one.